Let's give them something to talk about. I see the energy running out. I got a planet to run around. Okay. You ain't do nothing.
So we follow the official podcast formula. You got to have a little music intro. And you got to try not. And now we've realized we've had, I don't know, we've done almost 3 years doing this or more than that.
I can't believe that.
Yeah, we've I don't know about you guys and your podcast, but we have screwed up so many times with audio and everything, and we go half the time and there's no audio. And so then I have someone up at the front desk at Diablo watching, and then they're going to come running back to my office where we do this and tell me
on the door if the audio is on or not.
Yeah, if the audio is bad or not.
It is pretty amazing. We started our podcast in 2018, and I always think there's no way things can go wrong, like from a technical perspective. Like, we're always tweaking and dialing and doing this. And, we have our producer sitting in the room with us, and, and then we get on lots of other people's podcasts, and still it's just not a perfect system. And sometimes it's sometimes it just doesn't work.
Yeah. Do you guys record all of yours when you guys are doing yours? Okay.
Yeah, we record them all.
That makes it a lot easier if you catch something wrong.
We're kind of, well, I don't know if it's lazy or just like we want to be as efficient as possible, so we just do it live and then put it out there.
It's like CrossFit. Prepare for anything.
It was just TJ though. So TJ came on and we had just a awesome conversation. We got done with it and we were kind of almost high-fiving each other. It was awesome. He drove all the way over. He goes, "No, I want to be there. I haven't seen your gym in a while. I want to come over." And he came over.
It was his 25th anniversary too.
Oh yeah. It's his 25th wedding anniversary. Came all the way over, did the podcast, and at the end of it, I downloaded it and then went to upload it to for the RSS feed, so that goes to Apple Podcasts and Spotify and all that stuff. And I'm listening to him like, oh no, we had the mics not going through our mixer. The mics went through, all the mics in the room went into Jamie's laptop computer.
It's like one of those moments where your stomach just sinks.
Oh, and you're listening. You can't hear how you have the conversation. It was just awful.
Yeah.
Just don't mention that to TJ. Just be like, "Enjoy your anniversary, my friend."
Well, I did. I let him know. He's a champ. He goes, "Okay, well, let's do it again." I go, "Okay, well, how's Tuesday?" He said, "That's great." And I said, "Well, we'll just dial you in." He goes, "No, I'm coming over again." And that son of a bitch drove all the way over and did it again. And fortunately, it went equally well.
Yeah, it was good.
It was good. We practiced.
Had new stuff on there too, and
we redo from scratch a couple of podcasts actually for the same reason. And in some cases, it's been better because we're just a little tidier, and we sort of are like, okay, that line of questioning didn't work that well, so we're going to eliminate that. So you do get better with practice. So that's one side. But as long as you have a guest who's willing to come back, sometimes they won't come back.
So just a little bit about your background. So Juliet Starrett, by the way, is best-selling New York Times best-selling author of Built to Move. That's her claim to fame. And my ability to get someone like Juliet on the podcast diminishes as their popularity grows and their fame grows. Like they become, all of a sudden they're going to be out of reach, and then I'm like, Craig, oh yeah, I remember that guy.
Oh I don't think that's my claim to fame. And I don't even know what you're talking about, Craig. I would come on your podcast anytime of his.
You're awesome. And then prior to that, she helped run and build and run and still do the Ready State. And prior to that was running the certifications, the CrossFit certifications for mobility. Was it the CrossFit Mobility
WOD?
And then which became Mobility WOD after they left CrossFit, right?
Wasn't it Mobility WOD in the beginning, 2010?
I can correct your timeline, but you're roughly correct.
Okay, and then prior to that, and then we'll get, because we want to talk about all that stuff. Is prior to that was CrossFit founder and coach and part owner with her husband. Kelly, who everybody knows, obviously, Kelly Starrett, of CrossFit San Francisco, an icon in the CrossFit community.
Yeah.
Which produced, some incredible athletes out of there, but was always part of the CrossFit YouTube videos that were being made, and had just such a unique location that people coveted. including us.
Yeah.
Some of the stuff you guys did, the outdoor stuff especially, was awesome. But that whole story, and then you really started kind of grassroots with CrossFit and built that up. But what, and some people may not know this, although if you Google her bio, you'll see it. She went to law school and was a lawyer first. How long did you work in law?
It was about 6.5 years.
Wow. Okay.
Some of it overlapped with our ownership of CrossFit. So I started practicing law formally in 2003, and then we opened our affiliate in 2005. And then I officially left the law practice in 2009. So for a long time, I was doing, like many of us were doing at that time, running a gym and having a normal job. That was the way.
Yep. That was the way.
Yep.
As I talk to owners now today, or people that want to get started in it, I tell them that should be I lean that way, but I think that should be the way. I
still think it should be the way. I'm such a fan of that method. Even if you're working part-time even if you have a normal part-time job and then run an affiliate, I think that's the way to get it going. I think you can really start it more organically that way.
In California, I think it's almost essential, given the cost of living here and then the cost of real estate and equipment, transportation, all of those things combined make it exceptionally difficult to literally go, okay, I'm going to go rent some space and open up a gym. Part-time is, and a lot of people will say that with respect to business, small business in general, is have a job and then make it a part-time gig. And then when that part-time gig gets too overwhelming, that's when you make it your full-time gig.
Yeah. Yeah. I think you really have to see. I think a lot of people think entrepreneurship is for them, and including a lot of, we all have coaches who leave our gyms and want to start other gyms, and, but I really think you can't know until you go see, until you're really the one running the business and what that really means. And, and I don't think it's for everybody. I really think it's for not very many people, actually. And so you can't really know until you do it yourself. And, unless you have a trust fund, the best way to do it is kind of keep a day job and sort of see if there's some legs to it and whether you have the chops to be an entrepreneur. And then if you do, you go all in.
Tim Dimmel was owner of CrossFit Palo Alto, was talking to me this morning. We were talking about this very subject, and he said for 3 or 4 years, he goes, Craig, I didn't see my kids because he was all in on his affiliate, and he was coaching the bulk of the class. He would coach the morning and the evening classes, and during the day, the kids were at school. Yeah, and he was grinding, and he was stubborn and powered through and made it through to the other side. But that is not for everybody. And it is not, it is very rewarding from an interpersonal standpoint, coaching people and having them change their lives for the better, improving their health, the cost on yourself for the time away from family, the time away from things you really enjoy doing, even your own fitness, can be extremely discouraging.
Yeah.
Did Kelly worked as a physical therapist simultaneously as well, right? So you guys were both employed, and then your CrossFit gym was was kind of your shared side gig, right?
Yeah. I mean, he had a regular physical therapy job. Actually, when we opened our affiliate, he was still in physical therapy school. He finished the semester. We opened it in the fall, and then he graduated that following spring, and then got a regular physical therapy job that he had for 2 years. But yeah, I mean, same thing, we had real little kids, and, like until we brought on Adrian Bosman, which was, I don't know, 9 months into opening our gym, Kelly coached every single class because, I was running the kind of business, business was funny back then. And then Kelly would coach in the morning and the evening, and then he'd go to his full-time day job. And, I would take care of the kids in the morning and evening and go to my full-time lawyer job. And then at like 8:00 at night, I would answer emails from, potential customers, and, just, it was a lot.
Yeah, that's a lot.
Isn't, when do you look back on it and just go, my kids basically grew up in a entrepreneurial world where we were multiple jobs, multiple businesses, and trying to juggle it all while raising them. I look back on that with my own kid, and then Jamie Lee with yours. It's like it's really strange to think that they're grown up and they've been in that environment versus the 9 to 5. Well, no one does 9 to 5, but 8 to 5 or 8 to 6 or whatever it is. To think about the experience for them.
Yeah, right. I mean, I think it remains to be seen because my oldest is 20, but you sort of wonder, like, will they look fondly upon their parents' entrepreneurial journey and decide to do something like that themselves? Or will they think to themselves, hell no, I watched that whole thing go down and there's no way I'm doing that, and just work for somebody else for their whole life? I mean, it really remains to be seen what they'll do. But it's hard to say because I mean, honestly, someone could make an argument for either case.
Yeah, you can. When did you decide to leave your lawyer job?
I started thinking about it in 2008 or 2009. And what motivated, well, I don't know if I forget what year did your affiliate open, Craig?
We affiliated in 2006. We started in 2005, but it wasn't until 2006 we affiliated.
So you'll remember that when we all started these affiliates, nobody really thought they were a business. I mean, let's be real here. Like,
no,
I think
100% correct. Exactly.
Now like people have told me they get investors for their CrossFit gym. And I'm like, dude, I've run a CrossFit gym. I've seen the financials. I ran a really successful CrossFit gym. Like, who's investing in these? What the hell? So
that is so freaking true. Yep.
And now if you open an affiliate, you can talk to 9,000 other affiliate owners, and there's a way. Like, there was not a way for us to accept credit cards. We had to accept our membership dues with credit checks or cash, just like to go back in time, right? So, none of us started these things as a business. We all started it. And I'm sure your feeling was the same. Kelly and I were former professional athletes. We'd been working regular jobs. We were like super bored going to the Globo gym and like stairmastering and really uninspired by our workout routine. And then one day Kelly's like researching online, like how to do, like Olympic lifting moves with kettlebells. Like, that's literally a search he puts into Google. This is probably in 2003. And he'd been like reading a bunch of Pavel books, and he puts this search in and he finds this CrossFit workout, and we go to our Globo gym and we do this thing, and we realize that we are out of shape, unskilled. And, and by the way, we were coming off being like actual professional athletes. Like, I was a 2-time world champion at that point, but I was like, dude, I can't even remember. We probably did like Fran or something. And like, we sucked. We were out of shape. We were low skill. And that was so exciting to us. We were like, oh my God, we just found this thing. And I think we really also could tell, I don't know what it was, but we both felt like there was something to this, and we knew that it was emergent, and we wanted to be on the front end of it. And we had no idea what that meant. And we still didn't think it meant that it would be like a business where we'd like make money ever. That wasn't ever a thought in those early years. So it definitely was not a thought that we would, like get investors and, buy gym equipment and do all the stuff that normal people do now when they open a gym. We just thought, man, this is cool. We love these workouts. There's nowhere to do it in San Francisco. We want to create a space for our friends to do it. We can tell there's kind of a community aspect to these workouts, and we are going to have to figure out how to do it around our regular jobs, because we never had a business plan. There was no plan to make money. For the first couple of years we ran our gym, if we ever had like a plus in our bank account, we'd just buy like 5 more barbells.
Yes.
And that was it. I mean, there was no, we didn't pay ourselves out of the gym for the first couple of years. If we ever had a plus in the account, it was just buy gym equipment, try to spruce up our parking lot, whatever we could do there. And then there were 2 things that happened. Right around 2008, it started the sort of feeling started to change. I don't know if it was like this at your gym, but the feeling started to change, that we're like, oh my God, we really were on the front end of something big and emergent. The CrossFit Games had started. People were really, you know, when we first started CrossFit, like all my lawyer friends thought I was in a neoconservative military cult. They were like, what are you doing? But then by 2008, it was like, you could say I do CrossFit and they still thought you were weird, but they at least had heard of it before. Right. Like, you know, and so, you know, the gym actually started to like make a little bit of money, not like a lot of money, but it was making a little bit of money. We were actually maybe paying ourselves like $1,000 a month or something, some amount of money. And then on top of that, Kelly started teaching these courses through CrossFit, the CrossFit mobility courses. And that was when Mobility WOD started. So we had the gym plus this other side income. Kelly had brought his physical therapy practice into the gym by this point. So he was seeing clients there. And so we started to see a pathway that this was maybe a real business. And I was starting to get really busy because I was coaching a few classes and I was doing all the business stuff and then trying to be a lawyer and a mom. So at some point I was like, all right, let's give this a go. But I honestly was like, this could go either way. Like I could do this thing for a couple of years and just go back to being a lawyer for the rest of my life, or who knows? But we at least were making enough money at that point where we could like pay our mortgage, and we didn't have a mortgage. We were renting. So we could pay our rent.
Pay rent.
You know, we could cover our family expenses between Kelly's physical therapy practice, the gym, some CrossFit mobility courses. And so it was like a worthy risk to take to see.
That is very similar to Diablo and how we approached it and thought about it. And then, you know, Jeremy, my partner at the time, was able to quit his job, and I stayed and keep working so that the gym didn't have to pay any income to me. It was able to pay Jeremy, and he coached the majority of the classes, but it's very similar track. You guys, one of the things that I thought was really fascinating, it was enviable. And I remember, you know, and then everybody in the CrossFit community knew it because you guys, and, you know, especially Adrian was showing up in videos on CrossFit of your location, which was in a parking lot. And literally they had a parking lot. They had a tent with a shipping container.
Yep.
And every single day you guys, you know, would open up the shipping container, pull out the equipment and do the workout of the day in the parking lot, you know, in the marina at the, you know, it was a parking lot at Sports Space.
Yeah. Yeah. You know, I feel like, not to give us props, but that was super innovative.
Yeah, it was.
And, you know, just because rents in San Francisco were so expensive, it was sort of like a creative move, right? Like, and it's amazing to see how many CrossFit gyms now incorporate like outdoor spaces and, you know, have used I mean, it's like, you know, we were definitely the first people to ever do that in any gym setting. And
were there any zoning issues?
No, but it was interesting because, you know, the Presidio is run by the federal government. We ended up becoming an official tenant of the Presidio later on, but it was all just kind of this hush hush thing. Like the sports space was, you know, charging us this tiny amount of rent to sublease this parking lot. The Presidio knew we were there. I mean, we were running power through like an 80-foot extension cord, you guys, into the totally illegal. Like that was totally like we were doing some really janky stuff. And so I think everybody who worked in the Presidio kind of thought it was cool. Yeah. And so they just the Presidio just sort of pretended like it wasn't happening. And, you know, it just was this, like, it could never happen today, right? The Presidio fancy and, you know, it's just a completely different organization, but it was just the timing of it worked out well. And it actually was fine for our members. I mean, we would host these classes, rain or shine. We had this Kelly, I always called it like a tent, but Kelly rebranded it as an awning because he thought that sounded more fancy. So he said it's an awning. And we got this like giant size porta potty and we put all these plants in it and we called it the Taj Mahal. And I think it was where I got like my first lesson as an entrepreneur in branding, because we named it the Parking Lot of Dreams. We named the porta potty the Taj Mahal, and somehow we made it feel cool.
Yeah.
So out like next to some dumpsters in a puddle outside, and like somehow we branded it and made it feel cool. And I will say that it was fine, you know, for anyone. They can go work out outside for an hour in the rain, it's fine. It was hard on our staff actually, because I don't know if you remember coming over there, but you know, they would be outside for like 12 hours.
Oh, that's right.
you know, they, and, you know, cold and rainy and, you know, so it was hard on our staff to just be outdoors for 12 hours a day. So that's one of the reasons why we eventually had to, you know, get real and move inside. But it was really special and it felt fun and cool. And, you know, we had all this homemade equipment. And we were making these videos and we had, you know, Diane and Adrian and Carl and Roop. And we just had like a really, you know, all these kind of memorable early CrossFit people. And it was just fun. It was fun.
Yeah. How long were you guys in the parking lot at that time?
So we were there from 2005 to 2012. So almost 7 years.
Wow.
And I will say, by the way, as an entrepreneur, it was mixed because, you know, you're always kind of stressing about stuff anyway as an entrepreneur. And like, I will say the mornings when I would wake up at 4 a.m. and it was like sideways raining.
Yeah.
And I was like, dude, my staff has got to get up and sideways rain. And sometimes our awning would blow over the fence. So, you know, one time we went down, the storm was so bad that the parking lot filled up and all of our mats floated to the other end of the parking lot. So, I mean, there were some challenges.
Yeah.
Sure. And so when we moved inside, we were definitely ready to stop dealing with that kind of BS. I'll be honest.
That is right there is one of the reasons why part-time is probably a great reason to start, because no matter how you start, you're going to have those types of issues.
Oh my God.
You're gonna have it may not be as extreme as your stall mats floating away with, you know, in a rainstorm, but you're gonna have shit to happen, and it's gonna be at, you know, 4:30 in the morning, and you're gonna have members coming in wanting to do a workout with you, and they want you to be in a good mood and happy about what you're doing, and then you got to get up the next morning and do it again and again and again, and that's the gritty part, and what Tim and I talked about today, the gritty part that, you know, that's hard to communicate to people, and the only way to experience is to actually do it. But it builds character.
Yeah, I mean, do you remember in the early years, this doesn't seem to be as much of a thing anymore, but I mean, there was a 10-year period where we knew of like 50 CrossFit affiliates who would lose their lease and get into lawsuits because of dropping barbells.
Yes. Yes.
Right. I mean, that was a huge
CrossFit East Bay. I remember Mac saying, with in Jack London Square, he had his facility, and he got sued, and
I mean, so there's just those, you know, those kind. I mean, it seems like maybe people have figured out, like, if you're gonna have a CrossFit gym, it can't be like near anything else, and maybe that's sort of solved itself by just years of expertise. But I mean, it's those kinds of things that are just always sort of, you know, part of the entrepreneurial journey that are stressful.
Yeah. I love that story, because again, it would, you know, we romanticize CrossFit San Francisco, and for all the right reasons. It was iconic at the time. I will tell you though that we did have to buy a set of parallel bars after they showed up at your fucking location and hit video. And I remember
love that thing.
We got parallel bars here,
like real big ones with a huge base and crash pad and everything.
So we had, you know, what was cool is we had these like homemade parallel bars, which were the ones we were talking about that showed up in videos, and I can't remember who made them. And then I can't remember where Adrian Bosman was, but he obtained a real like gymnastics quality set of parallel bars with the crash mat, probably exactly what you guys have.
Yeah.
And we couldn't keep them at the parking lot though, because they would have gotten ruined outside.
For a
long time, those parallel bars, which I don't know if you remember from early mobility WOD videos, but those parallel bars were in our garage at home. We had them in our garage for years, and then who knows what happened to them. I don't know what we did. I don't know if Adrian took them back. He probably remembers. I don't know, but they lived in our garage for a long time because we were like, wait, these things are fancy and nice, and they can't sit out in the rain.
Yeah. Yeah, you can't keep those outside. We talked about keeping it. I think we might have put them outside on the side yard at one point.
Side yard at one point, you can't do that.
Yeah, the wood starts to warp and delaminate.
Yeah. So you guys, from there, the mobility WOD became quite popular, and you were doing the CrossFit mobility certification.
Yes.
I remember talking to you guys about that. And that was a nice revenue generator for you guys as well, I believe.
It was. And man, I look back on this period of like 2008 to maybe 2016 as this like golden era of coaches wanting to learn stuff.
like
and
that.
it was really cool. You guys were part of that. There was this era where coaches from all over the country were willing to spend their weekend going to any number of CrossFit SME courses, power athlete and endurance and mobility and nutrition and you name it. They're willing to invest in it and go do it in person. And yeah, we made a lot of money doing it. We made a lot of money for CrossFit doing it, which, don't want to ever get political about CrossFit, but I do think them letting go of the SME program was a miss.
Yes, agreed.
Listen, a lot of people
for the community. And, I know we made CrossFit a crap ton of money with those seminars. And we made a crap ton of money. It was mutually beneficial. But it was weird, even before the pandemic, we started to see around 2016, 2017, we had actually left CrossFit and we were running these courses on our own, but we started to slowly see this drop off in people's interest in taking these courses. And I don't know if it was a saturation of the market and maybe everyone who ever wanted to take a, specialty course in the CrossFit realm had taken one and, the market sort of died off from there. But I feel like it was really special because, people were traveling around and spending their weekends and getting to know coaches and collaborating and learning. And it seems like, and then, it was sort of further damaged by the pandemic and everybody moving everything online. And to me, that's kind of sad because I think it was really cool from a community perspective and from a collaboration perspective and learning that there was this real vibe of people were excited to and even sometimes it would just be our gym members. Our gym members were going to these CrossFit classes and just learning. And so I don't know, maybe you guys have some perspective on it. It was a really cool period to be a part of. And I do think it's too bad because I think people aren't as excited to, go learn in real life. And it felt like a movement that we were part of and it was lucky.
Yeah.
I personally think that social media contributed to the decline in in-person education like that. In other words, you could get snippets of everything.
You could kind of take the content via social media versus having to be there in person.
Yes.
And I think
made it too accessible.
Almost too accessible. And then they would pull out the best part of it and feed it to you.
Yeah, but then you're missing all of the base and foundation of it all.
Yeah, and I think that's part of the reason why we all created these, honestly, lifelong, I haven't seen you in a while, but I feel like we're lifelong friends and connections and, the coaches so I think what really is missing is, you can get the sort of basic, nuts and bolts, coaching information, but what you're missing is the connection and the collaboration and these relationships that we've all built, which was partly from, going through this insane thing of owning affiliates together, but also all this other peripheral stuff we were involved in.
That's
a really good point.
That is a really good point. And it's one of the, I talked to affiliate owners today and it's, talk to them about the human connection. There seems to be a resurgence in interest in CrossFits and going to CrossFits, and CrossFit affiliates are starting to see the benefits of that. And I think a lot of it is the craving for interpersonal relationships. Yeah. But that's interesting you say that because I think about, same thing. I met the coaches who coached my level 1, the coaches who coached my level 2, I could message them and ask them and they would respond back promptly. And other people that I've worked with within CrossFit, especially you guys, because we connected, as a result of our gyms being so close, but even in competitions, we connected and got to see each other and have fun together, hang out together. And you're right. Those are lifelong relationships.
Yeah.
I see Boz at the games. I can call him over, have a conversation with him because of that. Not because I'm Diablo, but because of the relationship that I had with him when he was at CrossFit San Francisco.
Yeah, it's crazy. I mean, we feel so lucky. I mean, we just, sometimes people try to obviously there was some drama around, Kelly leaving the SME program, and the SME program are blowing up, and, people are like, oh, well, you guys closed your CrossFit, so you must be anti-CrossFit. And I'm like, no, we are pro CrossFit. Like CrossFit changed our life, literally. And created this platform for us to be able to start Mobility Watt and the Ready State. And apart from the business side of it, just the relationships we've formed and still have. I mean, I'm in this other non-fitness business group, and Chris and Andrea from CrossFit Trident are in there. And
that's great.
I have so many touch points in my life from these relationships that all go back to CrossFit. And apart from the fact that, I still actually do CrossFit. I mean, the way that I work, the way that I exercise. So,
in your defense and through that whole process, I will tell you this, that in my experience through the years with CrossFit wasn't easy to work with.
Nope.
It was very, very challenging, and they were very, in my opinion, overly concerned or overly protective about what was being delivered to the public, especially when they worked with partners in the SME world.
Yeah, I mean, it was really interesting because there was a lot of hands-on when it came to the SME program, and then total hands-off when it came to affiliates. So it was like these two alternate worlds, right? You could just really do whatever you wanted with your affiliate. No, you could be, which is, I think it was a positive and a negative, right? It created a universe where you had these really well-run, really high-quality affiliates, and then you probably had some pretty bunk affiliates in the mix too, because they were so hands-off. I think it created both types of affiliates. But yeah, there was a different thing with the SME program. And again, I think it was weird because there were a lot of, it was like basically trying to create a band with 10 lead singers. So I see that can be, there's a lot of ego there. There was a lot of ego, right? You've right. Like everybody in there was a lead singer, right? And then Greg is like, well, I'm the actual lead singer. And then Dave's like, well, I'm lead singer number 2. But then you have, all these SMEs that are like, actually, I'm the lead singer. So I think that just created some conflict and drama, honestly. Everybody was a lead singer.
Yep. That's a perfect analogy for all of it. And that made it exceptionally difficult to thrive. The pandemic was probably a defining point for CrossFit San Francisco.
Yep.
That and this is one of the things I know is the cost of real estate in San Francisco, which probably would have gotten me sooner than it got you guys, because it was when people think about CrossFit San Francisco over in the Presidio, it's beautiful, it's awesome. Don't know much about the cost of real estate in that area to do business, and it was unbelievable. But on couple that with the pandemic and everything in San Francisco being either you can't do business or you got to do it outdoors completely for a long period of time.
Oh yeah, I mean, it was the longest. Yeah, I mean, one of the things that really bugged me after the pandemic is there are all these talking heads that were like, well, the only CrossFits that went out of business were the ones that were already struggling. And I was like, no, at the time that we closed San Francisco, before we closed San Francisco CrossFit, it was doing the best it had ever done. And it was, I don't know, making $3 million a year in revenue. I mean, that's 500 times more revenue than most CrossFits. I know, right? Yep. It was crushing it, right? We had
a lot more than Diablo.
Yeah, we had this gigantic, we were really early pioneers of doing a lot of private coaching, as you know, at San Francisco. We started that at the beginning. So we had this gigantic private coaching business and a huge membership. And it was crushing. We had a great staff, but we also were paying $26,000 a month in just rent. And then San Francisco San Francisco even exceeded California's restrictions in terms of
Yes, they did.
Disclosure. And so we were like maybe 6 and the thing that was so fucking annoying too, excuse my language, sorry.
All right.
You can bleep me on that, was that, the Presidio was not helpful at all, which Kelly and I thought was really ironic because our lease with the Presidio was like, first of all, like 5,000 pages long because it was but our landlord was the United States of America, you guys.
That's right. I remember that.
Yep.
Our lease was the United States of America and Kelly and Juliet Starrett. That was our lease, right? And so it did kind of slay me a little bit that it was like, wait, okay, so the United States of America is putting on these restrictions on use of a gym. And at the same time, like they're still charging me my full rent. And so ultimately the Presidio, I really honestly blame them for, us having to close because, in the first couple months, we got a little bit of support from the PPE. I think maybe we made one mistake we made as owners is we didn't, even though we continue to provide a lot of online coaching and online offerings and whatever, we thought it would be better just to pause everybody's memberships. We felt weird about taking their ongoing money, even though because we felt that we couldn't offer them a service. And I know a lot of people just kind of kept collecting people's membership revenue. So we basically, by and large ended like 80% of our revenue, but we still had 100% of our expenses. And, so when we were getting into, and we, by the way, also, because I'm a gigantic conservative nerd, had a giant amount of money saved. Like everyone says as an entrepreneur that you need to have like this rainy day fund.
Right.
Well, we had like a $400,000 rainy day fund just sitting there. Right. And which again, I'm going to say that 99% of CrossFits do not have a $400,000 rainy day fund. And so month after month after month, we're going by and chipping away at that to the point where it's getting to zero. And so Kelly and I get to the point where we're like, do we need to like tap into our retirement to keep this thing alive? And at that point, there was like, if we knew, okay, it's October and San Francisco is going to reopen in December, we would have just been like, yes, we'll hit our own. But, San Francisco didn't. We closed the gym in December of 2000 after losing like $375,000 paying rent to the Presidio for a building we couldn't use on top of all of our other expense. We still had to pay insurance. And I mean, what the expenses are. We had to pay everything. And we were like, our revenue had gone down like 90%. And I don't think San Francisco meaningfully reopened until like July of 2021.
Yeah.
So we, in retrospect, were like, no way. Like Kelly and I would have lost another $500,000 on that prospect. And we also were running the Ready State at the time. And we were like, dude, we love this gym. It was slaying. It could probably come back, but it was just it just got to be too much money. We're not going to tap into our retirement and make dumb financial decisions with no idea when the San Francisco would reopen. So,
and even when they reopened, there were significant restrictions.
We would have been able to have
for another 12 months
classes, and so yeah, I think that was poorly handled. I mean, you saw our gym; it basically was like a giant garage with open.
Yeah, it was.
Nobody was going to get sick in there.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that was the one thing that bothered me though, where there was sort of this like talking heads being like, well, all the gyms that closed with the pandemic sucked anyway. I was like, nah, dog.
No. I would say that though, that I'm grateful for our conversations during that period of time. One, it was reassuring, and there was a group of us that Northern California owners that connected, but it was because of my conversations with you that I was able to get the PPP funding. And we got directed to it. I ended up going to a small bank because the big banks weren't really good at it. Wells Fargo was terrible at it. I was last in line. The bank that I banked at for 20 years was unable to do it, but the small local bank was able to process it right away, and that saved us. Literally saved the gym. Admittedly.
Yeah, it was. It was just a crazy time, and if San Francisco CrossFit had been our only business at the time, we would have just taken the hit and, gone into $400,000 more of debt or something. And I have no doubt we could have, rebuilt it to now.
Come back from it.
But we also were running the Ready State, and Kelly and I are like, dude, this is like, feel like we're, I like the other thing that really bugs me is all these people are like, well, I have these fond memories of the pandemic because I wasn't working and I was just chilling. And I was like, oh my God, me and all the other affiliate owners I knew, like it was like I worked during those first 4 or 5 months of closure, 7 days. I worked, probably 75 days in a row without taking a day off because it was just like doing this online programming and it was just so much. I mean, amid all that, which really like, again, I don't want to get political, but then, that June, I think was when Greg Glassman made the George Floyd.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Which I really was like, dog, like, I don't want to get political here, but like we were already just dying. Like I think when that came out, I think I literally was like on my 70th day of working in a row dealing with this closure. And then that came out and I literally was like, dude. And so I'm then all of a sudden having to, make a political statement to my members, which I felt so mad about because I was like, and some of our members were calling for us to de-affiliate. I was like, dude, like we do not even have a gym right now. Like literally we're literally paying $50,000 a month in expenses for a gym with no members. And then all of a sudden people are calling me to de-affiliate. I mean, I like that, like put me over the edge.
It was,
it was so annoying.
Exceptionally annoying.
I don't know if annoying does
it was like, well, it's even more than that. It's like, because it was like putting another hurdle in front of us for everything we're doing.
More disappointment than anything. It's like,
why? I realized CrossFit gyms are communities, but I also felt resentful that I was like, why? Like, I literally am like, dude, all I do is help people exercise. Why do I have to be like a moral leader?
Yes.
I don't want to be a moral leader. Like all I am is like a fitness person. Like so it bothered me that I had to be like a moral leader, especially at that particular time when we'd all been like beaten down. We were just so beaten down as affiliate owners. And then I was like, I got to be a moral leader. I got to draft these emails to my community.
And none of it. And you and I, we come from professional backgrounds, right? So we have, and I'll give us some credit. We have professional backgrounds. We've dealt with HR departments. We come to understand how these things work and how to communicate in those situations. But the bulk of these affiliate owners, these guys that are grinding it out day to day and with smaller, with 100 to 200 customers, they've never had to do anything like that.
No. I mean,
a lot of them just rolled over and said, yeah, you're right. We're out. That's because and understandably so.
Yeah.
But
now I would just be like, hey, ChatGPT, Greg Glassman just said this thing and everybody's really offended and I need to write, right? Like, but back then I had to really spend like 4 hours writing this really thoughtful email about how I condemned his actions, but we were still going to stay as a CrossFit affiliate. And
oh my God.
It was exhausting.
I love you. That is so nailed.
It's almost like when they call and say, hey, what are you going to say? How's your response?
Yes.
Well, hey, how's your couch stretch going? How's your water intake going? Let's go back to the base of what we are doing here.
Yes.
It's like, we're just like Kelly and I just care about, like, do you have any hip extension or not? Like, we don't want to be moral leaders. Like, that's not what we signed up for. But, we all got thrust into that.
Roped into it.
Yeah. So, so you guys transitioned to the Ready State, and which was really impressive, and obviously made an investment there in a studio. I remember going over and seeing your studio because it was in
TJ's.
Marin at TJ's.
Oh, really?
The adjoining space to TJ's. And I remember being, again, it was a little bit envious of that. I'm like, damn, now they're doing this. And
can I tell you something that was so you can feel extra sad for us? So that was a bad year. So we have the pandemic, we're closed, this whole thing, you're doing the same thing as me, we're all dying. And then in June, the Greg Glassman, George Floyd thing happens, but also TJ, we were subletting our Ready State office from TJ. Right. Yeah. And TJ decided to close that gym. So in the middle of all this, we also lost our Ready State office.
Oh, shit.
But we couldn't move in time. So none of our employees wanted to come help us move because of the pandemic, because it was still so early. Everyone thought if they came and wore a mask and helped us move, that they would die. So Kelly and I have to like rent a container, and the two of us go down to the Ready State office, and we just literally huck everything from the Ready State office into this container, and it goes off to storage because and so that was another point of pain that we experienced in that 2020 was, we
when it rains, pours and pours and pours.
But this is a great podcast for people to listen to.
To this day, I text TJ because that landlord who, the reason TJ decided to close it is their landlord wasn't working with them at all. And, Allison and TJ were like, okay, this is stupid. We're not just going to throw money down the trash can at this. They had other locations. I think that landlord is cursed because that building has remained empty since then.
Oh, wow.
I just think to myself, what idiots. Like, these landlords could have worked with Allison and TJ for 9 months. They could have just given them free rent for 9 months.
And they'd have a tenant.
And they still would have had a tenant for the, past 5 years.
Wasn't that kind of a thing though? Like where light industrial stuff or like big spaces like this were starting to kind of, I don't know, prices going up or something like that?
Prices were going up because of the last mile stuff, Amazon.
Yeah.
Everybody wanted the small spaces, these small real estate places.
So it sounds like backfired on this guy.
Yeah. Backfired a lot of people.
So Kelly and I, every time we drive by that old space, we're like, that landlord is cursed. That landlord is cursed.
But again, going back to people that are listening to this and thinking, hey, someday I want to open a village. Someday I want to start my own business. These are the things you need to hear because it's not unique to Juliet. These are the types of things that happen. The late night with the shipping going down and filling it up, getting all your shit out of there, and it's just you two just grinding.
Two of us, like, oh my God,
quite the workout.
Yeah. Wow. Super, like, kind of a bummer. Yeah. So, it does take a little of the polish off the star.
It does.
But then, so you moved Ready State. Did you move it to your home?
Temporarily we did. I don't even know what we were doing, but we did get another space in San Rafael, which ultimately turned out to be great, and we're still there.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, it's called the Super Cube. And we do our filming there and our podcast, and we sell mobility tools, so we have like our little shipping department there, and so it's actually worked out great and been great for us. But
and now you guys are also doing you're still doing the mobility seminars, and I saw you have a 102 session coming up pretty soon. It's a 2-day session, 2-day mobility movement cert. And you did that, right?
I did the 101 when it was through CrossFit, but I'm planning to come back into repeat a 101 with the Ready State.
Yeah, we brought back the 102 live, and we just do it 2 days a year, and at about 2 weekends a year. Sorry, we just do 2 weekends a year, but it's been really fun. I mean, it's just kind of we've really gotten to know the people who come. We spend time with them, we eat meals with them, and, we've really stayed connected. So hopefully there's, more appetite. Hopefully I'm hoping starting to be more appetite for, people coming and learning in person. I mean, we still have lots of online courses and, people participate in those, and those are great as well, but just different. So
do those provide continuing education credits for things like CrossFit certification?
They do. They provide lots of different continuing education credits, like NASM and a bunch of the more standard ones. And then we did have, for several years, it was approved as a CrossFit continuing education, but I believe that's a program they've discontinued.
I think the last time I looked, it was still a valid CEU.
Oh, it is. Okay.
Yeah. Continuing education
for level 3.
Yeah, for the level 3.
Yeah. So it's in there. I don't know if it's our 101 or 102.
I think it was the 101. But still, I'd love to come back and just get involved in it again.
Yeah, come back.
It's been a long time.
Jamie is our in-house resident mobility expert.
I mean, I've been following your guys' stuff since the beginning. Loved all the content over the years.
And
come to the 102, Jamie, and don't do the 101. You'd like the 102.
Okay. I'm down. So with the 102, like what can you kind of explain a little bit of like what is involved? Because you said you only do it twice a year or two weekends out of the year.
We have an online version, so you can take it anytime. I take that back. The online version we do in cohorts, and we do it 4 times a year. So there's 4 cohorts a year, so you can do it online, and it's like a hybrid live because Kelly does weekly coaching calls for that one, so it's like a hybrid, but it's not real in person. And then twice a year we do the live. But the 102 courses are assessment course. 101 is more conceptual, but 102 is really how can you have a client in front of you and actually really assess them, and know how to work around their limitations and or help them improve. So it's definitely more hands-on than the 101, which is like slightly more theoretical.
Is the 101 like a prerequisite? Like you have to go through the 101 before you can do the 102 or sign up for the 102?
It used to be, but no, it's not anymore because we honestly, we just felt like it became annoying to try to enforce.
Do this one first.
Yeah. So now it's not. You can just jump right into the 102. I mean, I believe people will get more out of the 102 if they've taken the 101, so they at least are familiar with the language and the concepts. And so I think you might slightly get more out of it. You might be a bit of a deer in headlights at the beginning of the 102. Not you because you're a longtime coach and practitioner or whatever, but for like some people who have zero background in this, they might be a deer in headlights a little bit at the beginning of the 102. But you don't have, there's no prerequisite.
That's cool. Cool.
As the CrossFit community, one of the things that I've noticed here, Dan, partly is because we've been around so long, is that our average age of our clientele has gone up. From late 20s, early 30s to middle 30s, and now
retirement ages.
Yeah, late 40s, early 50s is maybe an average age now, where mobility becomes it's something we deal with in class daily now. Mobility limitations for people, for members. And I will tell you that this information is exceptionally helpful for coaches that want to, affiliate owners that want to start it, but also for their coaches that are coaching these communities. And more affiliates like Zia down at Counterculture, Natalie at CrossFit West in San Francisco. These are just people I know that have dedicated. Oh, my buddy JD Fit out in Illinois. They have dedicated classes for the 60 plus crowd. And then you have major mobility issues in that community.
If you're dealing with basically a 45, in my experience is a 45 plus crowd. We have this other program we run now, this online kind of strength and conditioning program called the Starrett system. It's like a longevity program, but most of our clients are like 45 to 75. And what you see is if you're dealing with that population, pretty much everybody has major mobility limitations, most likely a joint replacement. Half of them have cancer or some other kind of disease that has, impacted their health in some way. And so it's just a completely different population that you have to approach totally differently. And, one of the things that we're able to do is help people work around those issues so that they can keep training. Because those are the people, they want to keep moving, but they do not now or ever, they cannot now nor ever will they be able to do an overhead squat.
Yeah.
And they don't need to do an overhead squat. Yeah. I mean,
quiet. It's blasphemy.
Programming has got to change, right? It's not just even the mobility piece; it's the programming pieces, like what's appropriate for this aging population. And they don't necessarily need to do certain things. Mm-hmm. In my opinion,
handstand push-ups.
100% agree.
Handstand push-ups. For me, I think I have done my last ring muscle up. I think I did it. And I think it was earlier this year. It may have been my last one forever.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's just like if you have a bunch of 60-year-olds and they come into a gym and your programming is like pistols and overhead squats, like good luck. Right? Like, so
that's quite the combo. Imagine that workout, 21:59 pistol servers.
We do, again, and this is a struggle, Juliet, that we have because we come from, our history. Your history is the same as ours. Like you come from that environment where, those things are programmed, and then you create substitutions, but you fight as hard as you can, as long as you can, to keep people doing those things.
Right.
And I'm getting it just because of my own personal limitations now with mobility. And previous injuries, I'm starting to look at stuff and go, you know what? Do I really need to do another ring muscle up again in my life? I don't plan on competing again anymore. I can do pull-ups, I can do push-ups, I can do handstand push-ups, but I'm okay with not putting that kind of stress on my shoulder. And I'm more interested in being able to throw a baseball properly. So when I take my dogs out, I can actually I don't have to use that stupid stick that everybody uses.
Yeah, I mean, it's just, it is so, I mean, San Francisco CrossFit actually, we always skewed slightly younger because San Francisco is such a young city.
Right. But in the marina too.
Yeah. TJ and I would always laugh about that because in Marin County, he had all these 50-year-old athletes, and then we had a lot of 25-year-old athletes, right? So we were able to program a lot more of those kind of challenging moves.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think there's so many ways that you can, get people into those shapes and positions, which are so important, right? I mean, I even think about, good programming as a mobility practice in and of itself. I mean, people need to hang from a bar, and that's also going to help your mobility if you can't hang from a bar, right? So there's so many ways, as long as you're mindful of all the shapes and positions that the body needs to be moving in, you can touch those shapes and positions without having it be some crazy move that is going to deter people from wanting to do the stuff.
You're right. 1,000%. Yeah.
I'm grateful for Jamie's experience with mobility and education and mobility. Jamie writes the programming for us because it includes a lot of that stuff, the positioning, and proper activation in order to do the lifts that we do or the movements that we do even before we start. That is built in and wired into our programming. We're doing this month. We're doing with back squats our strength this month, and we just started this last month or 2 months ago.
Last month we kind of went back to
no Metcon with the strength.
Yeah.
So we did strength, but
back to heavy days.
Plus, but he does, and what's great is for those people that finish, because CrossFitters, we tend to rush through our sets. You literally have to tell people, you look at the clock. You do not go again for another 3 minutes minimum.
Yeah, you have to recover.
And then, but then he programs accessory work afterwards. That includes like clamshells and
just some isolated stuff for those that may not be putting as much weight on the bar, or may not need as much time to get to their working sets. It gives them a little something to kind of isolate and build strength that way.
That's, I sometimes when I talk about CrossFit, I feel like one of those parents is like, back in my day, but one of the things that was so awesome about early CrossFit was not telling anyone what the program was. And
wait till 5 p.m. the night before to see it on main site or whatever.
Yeah. And I mean, we literally wouldn't even we actually were one of the last ones to reluctantly post our programming in advance, because we felt like part of the thing was like, dude, you might need to show up, and like you're going to spend half your time going across our parallel bars and all these other things. And if you saw that the night before, you'd be like, nah. Or, it became this thing where if you just program strength only, people wouldn't come because they were like, oh, I got to suffer. So that was a cool thing. And I think was really good for people's like brains to just be like, okay, I'm going to trust these coaches that they know what I need to be working on and when. And I'm going to come and just be game for anything. And obviously, if I can't do it, I'll modify, whatever. But that's a whole different mentality than the night before. You're like, oh, shoot, I don't like that move. I'm not going to come. There was a phase where like people would quit your gym unless you followed that standard thing. It was like part A, warm up, part B, Metcon, part C, strength. Like it got so formulaic for so long that like if you just put a strength thing on, like people would complain.
Yeah.
Be like, oh, I didn't come here to just lift.
Mm-hmm. Oh, you didn't want to get stronger. Oh,
More CrossFit is not better CrossFit.
Yes.
So it got crazy because that's what people assume. And then there were the CrossFit Games athletes.
Yeah. I think
who are stacking their volume so that they could be operate well in a competitive environment, which is completely different.
Yeah. I think the sport essentially kind of took it to that level where more people thought they needed more, but also just missed the whole point. And from a coaching perspective, like if you're just doing a heavy day, there's so much stuff you can do. I mean, besides working on somebody's mobility, but just teaching like the intentions of why we're doing this or how to do it properly.
I got a question for you guys now, because I haven't owned a commercial gym in a while, but I do feel like there's this, big sort of push and understanding, thanks to all these voices in the longevity space and, Atia and Sims and all these people are out there like, you got to lift weights. And which we've all known as CrossFit people, but it's really kind of gotten into like the public ethos, and people you never think we're going to lift weights in your life, or all of a sudden like, I got to lift weights. So do you guys find now that people are more open to showing up and doing a weightlifting only workout because that's the sort of public messaging they're getting? Because there was a while where like we did not feel like, we felt like we always had to program a Metcon. If we just programmed strength, people would literally complain and think it wasn't worth their time to come to class. Do you think that's kind of changed because there's a big interest in weightlifting?
Yeah, I would agree with that. I've definitely fell into that trap of, I'm not doing a Metcon, or, we have to have something afterwards. So I would always find into some kind of a short 3 to 6 minute workout that, recruited some of the same muscle groups that we would use in the strength piece. But now I feel like a lot of the feedback, which is why we're going to continue with the one, at least once a week where we're just lifting. A lot of people are getting the best out of it. And great feedback. And I think too, like some of the new people that we have coming in now are looking for strength.
We have had, Juliet, we've had every other week, we have someone that comes in, and it's usually female.
Yeah.
Who says, and for age groups from 30 all the way up to 60s, that come in and ask for, I'm here because I want to get stronger.
That's really cool. I mean,
it's extremely unique. And I've tried to tell CrossFit this for the last 5 years. Strength is, because of all of the influencers that you and I know, the educated influencers, the Atias, the Hubermans, the Lane Nortons, all of those guys have all. Hey, Rhonda Patrick's doing CrossFit now.
I know, it's so funny.
But what the emphasis is, one, strength is essential to longevity. And the fastest way to build VO2 max is through high intensity exercise. And that combination, people are starting to hear and listen, but there is that public validation. So that has affected our members. Yes. Jamie does a class. So he programs the strength programming for Diablo once or twice a week, and it's strength plus accessory work. But then on Wednesday, he runs a specialty class, which is one Olympic lift. And that freaking class in the average age there is probably 55, 50.
Yeah.
And
that's cool.
It's full. It's full for and they come in, they know all they're working on is just one lift, and they're excited to be there.
Yeah. I mean, that one lift, it'd be either a clean and jerk or a snatch, but we work from a primer to the actual lift in some kind of capacity, like maybe break out, look at one little piece of it, and then having some kind of accessory that works along with it. If we're doing cleans, we're going to do maybe clean pulls.
We couldn't have done that 10 years ago.
No.
Yeah. No way. Like we would have had, if we'd done that, we wanted to, because we knew people just lift, but they would complain and say, they were paying all this money, and all they wanted to do was sweating. I do have a funny story for you guys that you're going to appreciate that just happened, and it's CrossFit related, so you'll think it's funny. So I was on this podcast, and Stacy Sims is one of my mentors, and one of the things I've learned from her is that women, as we age in menopause and beyond, we need to sprint. And sprinting doesn't happen for longer than like 15 seconds.
Yeah. Right.
Maybe 20 if you're truly sprinting. So I go on this random podcast, and I say to this podcast host, and this clip goes up on Instagram, and I basically say, hey, CrossFit and Orange Theory and all these things, they're not really high intensity. They're like mid intensity. And high intensity is sprinting, and you can't do high intensity for more than 15 or 20 seconds. And, I have this workout I love to do that's, 15 seconds on the assault bike, or max wattage on the assault bike, and then 90 seconds or 2 minutes off times 8 rounds. It's awesome. You just go hard in the paint. So this comes out as a little Instagram clip, and you guys can agree or disagree with my point of view about CrossFit being mid intensity.
Oh, no, I totally understand what you mean.
Yeah.
Yep.
Then the hate that came into the comments was amazing. Like, so many people were like, this woman must never have done a CrossFit workout in her life. And I mean, there were a bunch of those comments where people were like accusing me of never doing CrossFit. But one of the things you guys don't know about me is in the 90s, I was like super into spinning. I was like a lot of people, where I did so many spinning classes. Yep. So then a bunch of other people accused me of like never having taken a spinning class, because if I had, I would know that it's high intensity, and if I'd done CrossFit. So it just was so hilarious to me, because the podcast host was like really nicely responding, like, do you know who she is? And well, I think she's probably done some. So it was just hilarious that people were accusing me of never doing a CrossFit workout. And I was like, oh.
That's cute.
It's one of the things that we've struggled with, this as gym owners, and Jamie knows this, is getting people to understand intensity in lifting. Mm-hmm. Like literally, and I had to go, when you're gritting your teeth, you're not sure you're going to make it, your eyeballs are about to pop out. That's the intensity we're looking for in a lift. It's really going to make the strength gains. And the same thing in a Metcon. And Jamie and I would talk about it all the time, how the competition athletes in here would train, and they would avoid couplets.
Couplets and triplets.
They'd avoid couplets and triplets and short couplets and triplets, because they are painful.
Yeah.
Yep.
The intensity that you need to achieve in those types of workouts, and for the most part, and that's why the members love long chippers.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Yeah, because you're just working away for 40 minutes.
Yeah,
heart rate's like 130, and you're just you're right. You're not
and at the
almost
end,
a zone 2 scenario.
Yeah, you're sweating and you're laid out at the end, but that's not intensity. And it's funny, because the sprinting thing I've seen come up, and there's been a few people that have talked about it recently. And then the WOD Science guys who I follow on Instagram talked about it as well. Like the most optimal level, it was like the most optimal on off was something like 20 or 30 seconds on with like a minute off, or 90 seconds off, and then go again.
Range. And here's the thing is like you guys know this, because you've been programming since the dawn of time. First of all, I want to give a shout out to the couplet and the triplet, because Kelly and I always say, like, people ask us, do we still do CrossFit? And I was like, well, it looks different, the kind of CrossFit I do now, than what I did when I was, a CrossFitter in 2006. But like, we always say, like, we will do couplets and triplets until the day we die. Like, that is the money. So I just want to like shout out the couplet and the triplet, first of all, as from a programming perspective, like those are the best.
Mm-hmm.
And as you guys know, for programming, like a really good, well-rounded program is going to try to hit all these energy systems, right? So do basic strength, but like maybe once a week, you need to go super hard in the paint and do like a real 15 30-second sprint. And then a couple other days a week, you can do a more longer Metcon, but like real good, well-rounded programming hits all those energy systems. But people get real focused on like, oh, well, people get crazy. They get crazy.
They do.
Yeah.
Without there's good science behind that intensity and the sprinting side of it. There's really good science behind it.
Yeah.
Your book, Built to Move, though, is one I love, because it as I look through it, it aligns with our lifestyle, Yvonne and I's lifestyle.
Yeah.
As I think about you guys, and I follow you guys vicariously on social media, but is that where this came from, or did you kind of sit around and go, okay, what are the 10 tests and 10 practices that we need to, that are going to take care of, or did you just go, you know what, you guys standing there side by side, standing there looking in the mirror, we look awesome. And what do we do? And let's put that in a book. Let's put that in a book and send that out there.
let me tell you the origin story, because it hits a couple things, but one of them really is influenced by us owning a CrossFit gym for so long. So the first thing is, you guys are familiar with our first book, Becoming a Supple Leopard. You're probably, your computer's probably sitting on it. It's like 1,000 pounds. It's very
Yvonne still has it on her nightstand.
Yeah. So it's, and it's a great book, but it's heavy duty. It's a textbook. It's not for everybody. And so the first piece of it was, we realized we needed to write some kind of mass market book that had some mobility stuff and some lifestyle stuff, because, we just, if my mom comes knocking at the door and asks me a question, I can't hand my mom Becoming a Supple Leopard. Like, it's just not, we didn't have a resource we felt like we could hand to people that were not coaches and physical therapists. So we felt like it was sort of like missing from our quiver. But then the second piece, and I think you guys will really relate to this, is it did come from owning a CrossFit gym for so long, was that, the drill. Like, you've got a one-on-one client coming in, and you've planned out this like secret squirrel program. And then your client comes in the door and they report to you that they were out too late last night drinking, and they only got 4 hours of sleep. And, they were traveling in from somewhere, and turns out they were playing pickleball on the weekend and they tweaked their shoulder. And, this is your average private client. And so you in advance planned out this secret squirrel program, and right there in real time, you've got to completely scratch out everything you were going to do, rewrite a new program to deal with this person who showed up for you, who wasn't who you were expecting because of their lifestyle. So what Kelly and I saw over and over again in the gym is that, you can be the best coach for someone, and you have 1 hour with them, and then they're living their life doing a bunch of stuff for 23 hours that you can talk to them about during your 1 hour session, but you really can influence. And so Kelly and I were like, if we were coaches and we're private training people, and we want to say, hey, keep coming in here to do this formal strength and conditioning with me. I can make you strong and fit, hit all those energy systems. We can do that 3 or 4 times a week in an hour. But you actually have to do some other stuff in the other 23 hours of the day. And I'm going to hand this book to you as client. And these are the things you need to be doing. And they're really relatable and accessible to anyone who's not a coach. So yes, keep coming to your CrossFit classes, or keep coming to do your personal training with me. But then this is what you do for the other 23 hours of the day. That was really a big part of our vision there, was like, how can we support coaches giving their athletes this simple, relatable resource where they can work on their mobility and their basic, what we think are the most clutch lifestyle habits, and in the hopes that maybe you'll have a better client show up for you for their session, who can get more out of their training.
I can tell you that Juliet's thought about this many years. Yeah. And because of her experience in the gym and having to do with people and doing, especially if you guys did so much private training, and what you've said there,
you nailed everything.
You did. But let me tell you a story about her that I told I told TJ. I was 2015 or 16 or something like that. Diablo was doing these, Tommy Hackenbrook had called me up and said, hey, you need to do these, the 6-week transformations.
Oh yeah. My God. Tommy Hackenbrook. I haven't heard that name in a while.
I know. So, but he hooked up with this guy that was a marketing guru, and they were amazing. We did them for 2 years, almost 3 years. And we would do them, 6 weeks on, and then we'd take 6 weeks off and do another one. It was awesome. We had hundreds of women come through our doors, go through the process, and some of them are still members today. Yeah. And the entire thing was profitable because they pay up front, and they, and so we never lost a dime on it, and we changed a lot of lives. But I remember you came over, you won't remember this, but you came over for one of our quarterly meetings where we get together, the owners, you, me, and Jason Khalipa and TJ and Allison. But anyway, we get together, and I was telling you about this in our lobby. I go, you got to do this. You got to try this. This is amazing, these 6-week transformations. And you said to me,
no.
you said, you go, yeah, but Craig, so let me ask you a question. How do you get them to stop drinking a bottle of wine every night when they come home from work?
There we go. Okay. I don't remember saying that, but I stand by that.
It's right in line with what you just said. And I remember thinking too at the same time, going, damn, that's right. And it's the hardest part
Yeah.
is the changes the habits that they have that are ingrained in their life that are outside of the gym.
Yep. I mean, there's just
We
only
don't
so
have
much
influence
you
for.
can do, right? There's only,
Yeah.
right, you can tell, you know, and again, you can put them through these transformation programs or whatever. We did that too. I mean, honestly, I have to be honest. I did so many challenges, and in a way, I kind of, now that I know about how people actually make change and lifestyle change, and I'm not sure we really did people a service with all the challenges because we had so many members who would like want to win the prize, and they would like lean, you know, and they'd get like 2 free months of San Francisco CrossFit membership. And then literally 100% of them would gain back all the weight they'd lost during our challenge. And so we just, you know, we were part of putting it, you know, it's something I regret doing. We were part of putting people on this, you know, like this up, you know, this crazy route. So
they would do the hacks. They knew all the hacks. They liquid diets.
Yeah. Oh, you need me to drop 20 pounds? Okay. Maybe just not drink water for a week.
You know what? I've really disturbed my kids a few times because they've gone back into my, still to this day, you know, because your iPhone saves your photos from wherever. If you go back into my phone, I have hundreds and hundreds of
before and after
photos, like random people. And my kids found them one day and they're like, Mom, what the hell? You know, people are like basically naked.
Yeah.
You know,
I was on our Google Drive. I crossed those on my Google Drive the other day, the 6-week transformation course. Like, I still have these?
I do. I have hundreds of them on my Google Drive in my iPhone. Yep. And I look back and I kind of am like, oh my God, I'm not sure I did people a service there. You know?
Well, I will tell people, and I love the idea that what you just said there about, you know, having this book available or having something like this available for members to join. This may be something we do here at Diablo, because it helped me. My book, and then the one that I gave a lot of copies out to everybody, was the Primal Blueprint. Mark Sisson. As a matter of fact, he just posted a picture. He just posted a picture of himself. He's 72, and the dude looks amazing. Yeah. But same thing. And that guy transformed his life from, he came out of the endurance world, Ironman world, and found that, wow, hey, there's Ironmen that are dying of heart attacks and cardiovascular disease because of the nutrition intake that they had, especially after they stopped doing the you know, all the amounts of volume of running that they were doing, or swimming or biking, all the other stuff. But a lot of the things that he said then align with exactly this. So, and it's something that my wife and I do, walking 8,000 to 10,000 steps a day. I wish I was better. She's much better. She's going to live longer than me because she's doing the mobility stuff that is recommended.
She stays on top.
I am doing the deep squats, and then, you know,
we're just like
working on his shapes.
Like, you know, it's not rocket science, and that's like
all
I do on Instagram now. I just keep saying over again, like, hey, you know, you can try to be fancy with your red bed and all this fancy stuff you're doing, whatever. But like, let's all be honest, like nobody in this space, whether you have a PhD or you're just lowly coaches like we are, nobody disagrees that you need to like pick up some heavy things. You need to breathe hard. You got to sleep, eat some vegetables, eat some protein. I believe you got to sit on the floor a little bit, do some mobility work, and you got to walk. Like, there's no disagreement about these things. You know, reasonable mind is disagreeing about these things. And then the hard thing, so just because we all agree doesn't mean it's easy to implement. That's where like I'm interested in now, is like, how in the heck do we get people to just implement these basic lifestyle things? Because that's where that's what's hard. But yeah, that was, you know, that was the book. That was our sort of mission there.
And you just did the other one too that I'm finding out, and I'm really trying to be purposeful about it, is getting out in nature. You just did a podcast with, I think it was Jay Maddock.
Yes.
And he talked about the value of nature, and, you know, the Japan that's, you know, it's prescribed to people to be out and take a nature bath, if you will, and the impact. But it is very good for me and my health. Every morning I spend an hour and I head out, and I always head towards open space with the dogs.
Yep. And I mean, there's so many correlations between, you know, if you look on like a population public health level, you know, our built environment has a huge impact on our health. You know, if you live somewhere near green space or near parks, like it's automatic, you're going to be healthier. And so, yeah, I mean, man, we all living in Northern California are just living in like a treasure trove of.
Right. We're lucky.
I can walk out my door and be on a trail in 5 minutes and walk for days. And, so we're so lucky. But yeah, I mean, it's kind of crazy though. When we first were going to have this guy, Jay Maddock, on our podcast, I was like, well, how's this guy make a career out of researching that people should go outside? It's kind of a no-duh, isn't it? Like, it's a bit of a no-duh.
Right.
But you realize, he says something, and the data is like most people go outside 20 minutes a day, like the average American. And so you start to really realize, like, wow, we've built our environments around being inside all the time and
sitting.
And, now we've all started to learn tons more about the importance of our chronobiology. And so if we don't ever go outside and look at the sun and, like experience being outside, our sleep gets messed up. I mean, it's just all this connected stuff, but it still is kind of in some ways for me, like, oh my God, yes. Like, how did we get so lost as a species that we have to like prescribe going outside?
That is kind of a crazy concept.
I forced my daughter to do it. It's so easy for her. All of her friends, she has so many friends online. She talks to via Discord. She loves her art.
Yeah.
So she's captured in that. And I don't want to deny her those relationships, amazing relationships she has with people around the world. But at the same time, I force her. You get out. Last night, you're going for a rock. I don't care. You better go before it gets dark because you're still going. And she does. She puts on her backpack and she goes for it. But then when she goes out and she went backpacking with me up to Yosemite a couple weeks ago, and then she was she's a different person. And she absolutely loves it. And that and just more of that exposure. One of our members, Annalise George, she's pregnant with her fourth.
Yep,
pregnant with her fourth, 3 kids. But she's a teacher that left teaching to homeschool her own kids. And her rule is 1,000 hours outside. Mm-hmm. That's her goal for her kids every year, 1,000 hours outside.
Yeah. I like that.
And it's great. It's like she posts it all the time and she's pushing other people to do the same. And I think a lot of parents would find out, hey, don't need the medications I thought I needed. My kid isn't really ADHD. It just needs nature.
Mm-hmm.
I have a friend whose kid is having some mental health struggles, and he was literally prescribed a wilderness coach. This is like a thing. You can hire a wilderness coach.
Wow.
This wilderness coach, he leaves his phone, he's like a mid-teenager. He leaves his phone behind and he goes out and he hikes and they like whittle and do, kind of Boy Scouty stuff out in the wilderness.
I'm all right with that.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So that definitely seems to be gaining some traction, right? Even Jay Maddox said that he has a course, he and his other researchers go out and they're actually teaching, American physicians how to prescribe nature. So we're not far from a place where you could literally go to your primary care physician or take your kid and they could literally prescribe you going out in nature. So that's cool.
That's awesome. That is awesome.
With that thought, I think, and TJ agreed with me, and I value his kind of perspective on the whole community, the health and fitness community as a whole, that we may be in the next 10 years in the best years ever to be in this business, because of the large amount of influencers now that are having an impact, Robert F. Kennedy in the position that he's in, and people focused on and realizing that, hey, the only way my health is going to change is if I do something about it.
Yeah.
And it could be awesome.
Yeah. I think I think it's a mixed bag, right? There's so much misinformation. And so all of us that are in the space are constantly having to, tell people, okay, that's not really the way. And at the same time, we're in this golden age where we actually, for years doing CrossFit, people thought we were so
crazy.
Weird. It was so free. We were in a cult, which, sometimes by the way, I'm obsessed with cult documentaries. And I really find a lot of similarities between early CrossFit and cult documentaries. So Kelly and I often look at each other and we're like, dude, were we in a cult? Like, we actually have this discussion with each other a lot when we're watching some kind of cult documentary. That's a whole side podcast, guys. That would be a side podcast. But yeah, I mean, it's just, we're in this place where you can have like, I can have some, Marin mom whose whole mission in life has been to like be skinny, approach me now and say, I know I need to start weightlifting. What do I do? Mm-hmm. And that's so so cool. Like
that's really cool.
Some like really exciting things. And the other thing, I don't know if you guys have ever listened to it, and it might not be your cup of tea, but I do this quarterly podcast with Eric Malzone on the future of fitness. I don't know if you guys ever listen to his podcast.
Future Fitness.
Future Fitness. It's really kind of a, he really talks to all of the, it's a more business podcast, and it's across, regular gyms and wellness and tech and everything. It's really interesting, but we get on and do this quarterly roundup. And one of the things we do, which I've learned a ton, is we actually analyze, there's only 4 public fitness companies. I don't know if you guys know that. It is Planet Fitness, Lifetime Fitness, Exponential, which is a conglomeration of little gyms like Core Power Yoga and Stretch Labs, and Peloton. Those are the only fitness companies that are public companies. And so we've been tracking and watching those companies and how Wall Street is reacting to those companies. And, Peloton is still in a bit of a struggle bus, but those other 3 companies are doing great, which we consider to be sort of a tell for how the larger fitness community is doing. And it's really cool. I mean, there's all this data showing how many women are seeking strength training and how many people are really wanting to go back into gyms and work out in real life. People, they want the flexibility. They're just like, it's really like, I think it's a really exciting time in fitness, like really exciting time. Like it's cool.
Yeah. That's fascinating. I didn't, I came out of the investment world, spent almost 30 years in it. And I didn't realize that there were only 4 publicly traded major fitness companies.
Yeah. It's just those 4.
That's fascinating.
That's crazy.
That is fascinating. And that is a barometer for what's going to happen. That also makes it an interesting proposition for anybody that acquires CrossFit.
Right.
There's only 4 public. Maybe, CrossFit maybe could be the 5th if they do it right.
Yeah. That would be really interesting.
Yeah. Cool. Well, listen, we've gone an hour and 26 minutes for our hour-long podcast. It's awesome to talk to you. It always is when you especially when you align with something. But you've been a tremendous influence on you and Kelly have been a tremendous influence on our community, our coaches, and Diablo CrossFit in general. Just to have helped make us better, and I'm greatly appreciative. But then you also personally helped me out quite a bit, especially during the pandemic, and so it was awesome to be able to get you on the podcast and talk about the future of all of this.
Yeah, well, I just want to say I adore you, Craig. And even though I don't see you in person, I'm always watching everything you're doing online. And I feel the same way. I mean, those quarterly meetups we did, man, what a lifeline those were for us, both before and during the pandemic. And I just feel like we have this strong, lifelong connection. And it's so fun. I mean, like every time I get on a podcast with anyone who is like from the CrossFit past, I just am pumped. Like it's so fun to talk to you guys. It's been such a crazy, fun ride, and we're still on it and doing it. And how cool is that?
It's really freaking cool. Yep. Well, thanks.
Thanks, guys.
Great discussion.
Thank you. Till next time.
Till next time.